I want to talk to the men of America. Talked, hasn't it? I hope you've been doing well. I miss talking to you. It's been unpopular to even recognize that men even exist or there's a role to play. But I'm talking to you today. I want to just address you to give you a heads up. Something's happening, and it's happened before, but something that we really haven't seen in America for most of our lifetimes. In fact, I think that we last saw it about 78 years or so ago. Most of us don't have a frame of reference for this, but the minute I say it or play it, you'll understand the reference. It was 78 years ago that America heard these words.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
So it was 78 years ago that the Japanese went to Pearl Harbor and America entered World War II, and the world began to change in a flash. And it was one of those events that altered our day-to-day lives overnight. We were on a path, one that was familiar, one that was sure, and then overnight, gone and reset. In the blink of an eye. And you know what we did? We adapted. We adjusted. We changed to a new path, and we dug deep. We found our courage. We found a way to become new people, a focused people, a generous and powerful people. We became the world's production engine with factories filled by men, and now for the first time, women who stepped up to do what the world needed. And us, as a group, we collectively became. And men, it was a great era for us. And not for all the reasons that the woke left will tell you why we like that, but because the nature of real men. We worked to conquer the natural man to become better. It was the era where we stood up and we became who we were meant to be, not who we could allow ourselves to become. And yeah, sure, we had to kill a bunch of bad guys, but the uniforms were pretty sweet. The dames of the USO dances, they were dames that didn't blow on some other guy's dice. You know what I'm saying? We got to shoot machine guns, blow stuff up. That didn't suck. We could smoke and nobody lectured us about smoking. Nobody complained if we wanted to have a drink after long days of work or a firefight in Tunisia, a fist fight to settle our arguments. That wasn't that big of a deal, but that's not what made that great. It was a great era because the world needed men to be men. We were called back to our natural role. The world needed warriors to battle against forces of chaos, to hold the line and prevent humankind from sliding into the abyss of socialism, national socialism, and international socialism called communism. The world needed weapons, bombs, tanks, planes. It needed powerful, terrible, destructive instruments to bring to bear, to help wipe evil from the earth. We became inventors. We became protectors, defenders of those things that are worth defending. And yes, as men, we paid a very heavy price. Most of our grandparents or great-grandparents never spoke about what it was really like because they also had to become killers. The world needed killers. We only survived doing what comes naturally to natural man, killing, because we had trained ourselves in the grace of the Creator to rise above the killing and instead focus on becoming liberators. But that generation survived and then came back home and helped the world thrive because they were called to service. They put rifles in our grandparents' hands, put ribbons on their chests, and flags over their coffins. And now, men of America, it's time again Hear my voice. Consider yourself on notice. Once again, as it has in the past, the world is in trouble. And it's your turn now to step forward and serve. The world is facing a new crisis, one that threatens to push humankind into the abyss. It's not just the coronavirus, but it starts there. As of today, you're being called to service, not in some generic, called upon to be a man, to play the old role, to be strong, to be a protector. Yes, to be stoic, brave, and confident doesn't mean you're not going to melt down, doesn't mean you're going to cry from time to time. But you need to act with surety even when you're not sure, to lead your household, to be helpful and dedicated, to do your part and risk your life and fortune, to protect those around you, not just your family, but your neighbors, to be a part of something larger than yourself, to throw your body into the breach. And it'll be the doctors, both men and women, the nurses, both men and women, who are going to be the first online. But this is just the first wave. It's been a while. It's been a while. For the last few decades, society not just forgot about men. They tried to deny. They forgot they needed men. They had it that easy. We were asked to be gentle and passive. And there's nothing wrong with being gentle. Passive? We were asked to mask our manhood. That was wrong. We were told it was toxic. That's a lie. The world wanted us to play a different part because they thought they didn't need men anymore. Well, things change. Usually, you need that man overnight. Let this serve as a wake-up call. Let this serve as a calling to become a man. Welcome back, American men. As a man, as leader of a household, a family, or a business, it's incumbent upon us to adopt the proper mindset. And that means the first thing we have to do is force our brain to realize that this is actually happening. We are facing truly unprecedented disruptions in our life, at least in the short term, perhaps longer. Our lives are probably going to have to change for a while. And some of the things are going to change possibly forever. As America did during the Spanish flu, the Great Depression, World War II, we have to look at things through a new filter. And yes, it has been that long since an event of this magnitude has happened, which is why you have to force your brain into the right mindset. The normalcy bias is a high barrier to overcome, and that's what a lot of our friends and family members are dealing with right now. The normalcy bias. They've never seen it this way, so it's easier to dismiss this and look for something normal. It's a natural purpose. It's built in all of us to save our lives most of the time. But we don't live in the same world we did just a few weeks ago, and we are not going to be living in a world that we even recognize a few weeks from now. At this point, you shouldn't be acting as if it might happen. We behave as if it will happen. That doesn't mean that society is going to collapse and we're going to be facing a zombie apocalypse, but localized and regional disruptions in food supplies, energy supplies, they are realistic. They may not happen widespread, but it is realistic. And the reason why people freak out and panic is because they're not sure. Well, nothing is going to be sure for a while. So you have to be the rock. Prepare yourself for being that rock, making firm, commanding decisions. Your family is going to be looking to you for leadership and protection. Be calm. Listen to others. Partner with your spouse. I know this is probably going to be taken out of context. Glenn's saying that you men are men and women just go back in the kitchen. That's not what I'm saying. Partner with your spouse. Make clear decisions together for your family. But when it comes to those you shepherd, be decisive, exude confidence, even when you have doubts, because we all do. Jesus in deaths. My God, why have you forsaken me? Jesus had doubts. Realize that the government is there to protect the country, the state, the county, etc. That doesn't mean they're there to protect you. Don't let your family become a refugee or a statistic. Nothing here means the role of women is lessened or of less value than it ever has been. In fact, the world needs them as much, if not more, than us. I'm just going to stop that. I'm going to leave it as much. We both have separate but equal roles to play. They're being called to service too. As you step into your new role, they have to step into theirs. But they need to define that for themselves. I'm a man. Let me speak to the men. The world needs men. What's worked in other countries to slow down COVID-19 is to shut everything down, shut shopping down, shut down events, shut down travel, shut down places, quarantine people. That prevents the spread. That prevents people from dying. That's what we should expect to happen here. But we are a republic. We don't want the government doing these things. We have to do them ourselves. For several weeks at least, the changes to social behavior, like wearing a surgical mask in public and not shaking hands, whatever it is, that's going to be going on until there's a vaccine. But you're not called to just fight a pandemic. COVID-19 is just the pin that's popping the bubble. The bubble is what you really need to worry about because this is a two-wave disaster. The first wave is a disaster of a deadly disease. If we don't act, it threatens to kill millions of our friends and family and neighbors all around the world. Millions. Because they could literally weld people, seal people into iron rooms and weld their doors closed in China. They got past it. We're not going to do that. We're not going to follow people with drones. God help us if the government thinks they have to or do. But as bad as the viral pandemic could be, the next wave will be worse. The economic pandemic that follows threatens to be exponentially worse. Disruptions to the global supply chain have barely been felt. Warehouses that feed the grocery stores are starting to run out of food. We're not going to have a run on the grocery stores. Don't make it worse. But they are trying really hard to make sure that they have food and people to ship them. The consequences are big. What's happening in the global economy now has never happened before. Realize that. Never. The consequence of revolutionary change. Ready. We're more than ready. We're going to be just fine. We're built for this. God wrote the script. Our character description is pretty darn clear. The world isn't going to end, but we're going through a significant season change. Ready yourself. Be prepared to protect and defend your family because that is your job. That's the job everybody's been getting you to try to deny for a long time, but that is your God-given job. And for once, the world is going to realize they need us to unite. They need us to be men. And each of us play our role again.